tuned into Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Tune in right now.
Welcome back. You're watching BLM Community, More Than a Hashtag. I'm your host, Shaka Smith, joined by panelist, news correspondent at Isaiah Ibeka, and attorney LaToya Blakely. What's up, guys? Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Having me.
So we have a lot to talk about. Of course, we're going to be talking a lot about politics. We're talking about Trump on Buffalo and, of course, the George Floyd funeral. But let us start to dig in. So many issues of the day. How are you guys personally doing with just checking in with yourself and the protest?
I'll say that I'm on the other end, I think, of everything. Everything is kind of cooling down. I was feeling mentally exhausted and just like not feeling good when I woke up, not feeling well, because everything is just kind of on your mind. And even though I knew I should kind of pull away from my phone or the news, I was like addicted to my screen because I had to know what was going on. So I was kind of like having cognitive dissonance, I guess. Like I just wanted to know what was happening. But it seems that things are settling. So mentally, I feel a little bit lighter.
Yes. LaToya?
I can agree a little bit. So last week I was very restless and a little anxious and eager to get involved, but not really knowing what that was going to look like for me. I've got an opportunity to participate in a protest. And I have to admit, when I first got out there, I was a little like, okay, this is not doing what I thought it would do for me. But the more we marched and the more we used our voices and the more we took a knee, the more I felt like we were really sending a message. And I actually hope it's not cooling off. I mean, I think that this is the first time in a very long time that we're actually seeing change that matters. And we're seeing a world that's responding to a problem that all three of us know has existed. And so I'm like, let's keep going and let's keep pushing.
Yeah, absolutely. And where are you guys located? Are you guys all both in LA as well right now?
Yeah, I live in North Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just know that across the world, these things have been taking place. So we definitely have to have some panelists on that are from different parts of the different countries, because watching it take hold in different countries has been really remarkable for me, because normally they don't quite check into what we're feeling here at home,
I agree. Yeah, it's like what Toya said, it's just really inspiring to see how the momentum and that it's still going. Like I was saying, I was feeling calmer because I feel calmer, but when I still turn on the news, I still like the other day when we saw LA strong. I mean, I've never seen it like that in my life. Yeah. And they show the map on the news that it's all 50 states, which I was also astonished because I was like, Alaska?
North Dakota? Like,
South Dakota?
I didn't even know there were Black people there,
Right. And then places like Rome and other historically, racist places that, are sundown cities for a lot of Black people not to travel to. I could not believe it. So it's amazing.
Yeah, and what's great is that we're seeing this being put into law. We're seeing some action that's taking place right away. We know that in Los Angeles, even that we banned chokeholds. In DC, they banned the carotid chokehold as well. So we have a lot of different departments that are making these legal institutional changes. So Colorado Senate Democrats just passed a bill as well. The LA County DA, as I mentioned before. And now in LA, they're also getting $100 to $150 million away from the police and putting it towards education and different reform. People are saying it's not enough, but at least it's something. How do you guys feel about this movement, and do we need to do more? How do we do more?
Well, we definitely need to do more. But I do applaud the steps that have been taken, because like I said before, this is the most change and the quickest change we've seen. Police forces are, I don't want to say overfunded, because I don't know the numbers of different police forces. So I feel like that's not a comment that I can make, at least not an intelligent comment. But we definitely need money in programs, in neighborhoods, in schools, and in situations that prevent people from even getting to the point of interacting with law enforcement. I think that rubber bullets, tear gas, the way that they've been handling and approaching protesters, they're a necessary means. The fact that a rubber bullet can take an eye out.
Yeah. not
that's not okay.
Shouldn't be part of, should not be part of what's used.
Right. So I definitely applaud the governments that have been making changes, and like I said, I just think it's the beginning and we need to keep going.
Yeah, are you encouraged?
I would agree. I think the best way to punish people or make them listen to you is to hit them in their pockets, because money is the universal language for just about everyone. You can't really survive in this life without it. So I think the police forces are going to see what happens when, I don't know, they have a cutback on X, Y, and Z because of their behavior. But I do believe that there's so much more to be done, because there's the other side of it, the accountability and what happens when you do mess up. We can take 200 million from the police force and they might have cutbacks on X, Y, and Z. But if they do mess up, what's going to happen? If a cop does step out of line of policy or does hurt someone, what's going to happen? I think that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. But I definitely think that they see us out there strong, and that they know that there's a sense of urgency, because it's not going to stop. And we will be out there every single day. I don't really condone burning it up, but it seems like stuff is burning up. So if you don't want stuff to burn up, I think that you need to, put your foot on the gas. So I guess I can commend them a little bit for taking immediate action.
And we do know that the justice, as you mentioned, that oversight is so important, and the Justice and Policing Act of 2020 has been pushed forward, and that's been sponsored by Nadler, Bass, Senators Booker and Senator Kamala Harris as well. Of course, Kamala Harris might be in the running for that VP spot. We'll see what happens there. But this Justice and Policing Act of 2020 does require a national policing a national police misconduct registry. It does require states to report these violent incidences with the offenders. So then we would have a lot more oversight. But, and I was a big fan of the Justice and Policing Act so far, wants to ban the chokeholds. But of course, there's a little bit of controversy, but it's because before they took this vote, we had a picture that emerged that I'm going to ask you guys to take a look at now, and that we'll discuss as part of what's going on. So I don't know if you guys can see there, we have a picture of, the legislators kneeling. And what took place here was they were in the Emancipation Hall of the Capitol. They knelt for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, which is the amount of time that George Floyd was held, murdered by the police. And then they went and took this vote. They were given the kente cloth by the Congressional Black Caucus. So they were doing it in solidarity with them. But of course, this erupted in a lot of controversy, people saying that they shouldn't have really sort of performed or taken this and appropriated this for a picture. What is your response? What was your visceral response to the picture? And then, maybe how do you view it afterwards?
My response was immediate, it wasn't funny, but it was more so like a ha-ha moment, because it looked like, I'm just be honest, looked like clownery to me. Okay, so it wasn't funny, haha, because I think this is a serious moment that we should continuously take seriously. But it was just oh my God. At first I thought it was photoshopped. I don't know if you guys see the memes of the Hotep memes with people put kente cloths on anything, on SpongeBob, on anyone. I thought it was fake. But I watched the video and it was real, and I just couldn't believe it, because obviously I know that some Black organization had to have handed down this idea. So it came from somewhere. But again, it's just so much performative allyship. What the kente cloth even represents, it's an African cloth, it's a Ghanaian cloth, and each color means something different. And just to put a stole on as some type of solidarity with Black Americans, a lot of Black Americans who don't connect to that same history anyway, to me, it was a disconnect. What is that supposed to mean for me now? Now that you're kneeling with this, what do I do with this cloth? Do I now feel closer to you? Do I feel like you hear me because you have this cloth on, you're kneeling for 8 minutes and 46 seconds? It just didn't do anything for me personally.
Yeah. Toya?
I will say that when I first saw the photo, I thought that it was a joke. I didn't realize that it was a real thing. But it doesn't bother me so much, especially if, there's so much to know about African culture, African American culture, Black culture. And like you said, even Black Americans don't understand necessarily what the kente cloth means or what the colors mean. And we may not associate with African culture in some ways. But if the people who participated in that did it out of a sincere desire to connect and to stand in solidarity, I support it. And I support that 1,000 times more than I support these cops who have been taking a knee. Because every time I see a picture of a cop on his knee, I'm like, stop playing with me. So.
And I will say, I did my little research. So gold means status, green is renewal, blue is spirit or spirit harmony, red is passion, and black is union with the ancestors. And so when I saw the thing, my visceral response was sort of like, what is this? But I sort of trusted that there's no way Nancy Pelosi is wearing this without good or reason, So when I heard the Congressional Black Caucus gave it to him, I said, okay, that makes sense. What for me it does now, it allows us to question them about the kente cloth, question them about why they wore it that day, and open up that dialogue. So I kind of take a take of performative activism is all right so long as they are now open to what comes with that and the responsibility that comes with it. Do you guys have an opinion on that?
I can understand exactly your place on it, because it could ask, or we could hold them accountable for the knowledge, and we can say, okay, well, look what all these colors mean. Do you guys feel this? Do you feel the unity? Do you see the passion? You sure do, but like, do you see the peace? Do you see all that other stuff? Do you see the strength? But I feel like it's a one-time thing. It's a moment in history. It happened, and I'm pretty sure we're never going to revisit it again. It's just going to become part of meme culture and social media culture, because there's so much more that we have to focus on coming after it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, again, we can give them small kudos for that show of solidarity, but there's a lot of action that has to go behind just wearing that cloth. I just didn't understand that at all.
Yeah.
I just have a question. Is there a way that you feel that they could have shown solidarity in a more appropriate way, or in a way that would have connected with you more?
I would have liked, I probably wouldn't have preferred them to do anything of that, like that. The kneeling, though, I understand that completely. That kneeling is a universal sign of respect in most cultures. So that for 8 minutes and 46 seconds without the cloth, I think would have been a lot more meaningful, because look what happened. It was innocent, and it looked like it came from a good place, but look what it turned into. And we've had the internet long enough to know how people can spin things, and the heart could be in the right place, but there's a lot of people who get paid a lot of money for media training and know how it works. And I feel like they could have completely avoided the stole and gotten the message a lot further without the laughs, without the questioning, without the what's going on here. So that's how I see it.
We did end up talking more about the kente cloth than the vote. So yeah, I can agree in that. Yeah. Well, our next story is about Trump and responding to what happened in Buffalo. So we know these officers ended up pushing an elderly man. He fell down. I don't know if you guys watched the video, but it was gruesome because the way they walked by him after he fell down. And then they were removed, these two officers, and then 57 officers also resigned in protest. And of course, Trump now weighed in with this tweet that we'll take a look at now. But this tweet, he essentially accuses this elderly man as being part of Antifa, and the elderly man has come out and say, he's been a long-time peaceful protester. And we just had Mayor Lori Lightfoot in Chicago come out and say Trump is dividing America. I mean, when I see a tweet like this, I don't see how of course I completely wholeheartedly concur myself. I want to know what you guys think about his division of America, or is he just speaking to one group, and that group is where his heart is?
I have so many thoughts about this. And I've long said about Donald Trump that when he was elected, I said he's either going to surprise me and be really good for this country, or he's going to be the worst thing that's ever happened. I've also said that I don't necessarily think that Trump is racist himself. I think he's a narcissist, and I think that he's only concerned with the people and things that benefit him. And that just happens to be not Black people and not people of color. He's divided this country, but he's united this country in that division. I think that under him, people have had such the freedom and the balls to say what they want to say and do what they want to do, that it has pushed everyone to extreme ends. And it's that division that has created the space and the opportunity for us to all show up in our truths. And it's those truths and that force behind those truths that I think has allowed an environment to create this change.
Yeah.
I'd wholeheartedly disagree with the fact that I think Trump is a emblazoned racist. I think he is like the epitome of racism. And it's not about this presidency. We know Trump's track record in housing. We know what he did to the Central Park Five. We've heard his commentary on Obama. We've heard his cognitive dissonance in so many racial issues that he has made his stance. And now that he has the biggest platform in the world, he continues. He has no censorship whatsoever. I've never seen that in my life. And I will say that the country is divided, and it has already been divided prior to Trump's presidency. And I will agree with that. Who he speaks to, he gives them a voice, and he gives them power, and he gives them bravery to just be who they are out loud. I will say that, especially in Trump's tweets, he is speaking to a very specific group. And you can call it dog whistle politics, you can call it whatever you want, but he is very strategic in the way he says things. When he calls one side good people on both sides, when he refuses to condemn certain groups, when he refuses to acknowledge when there's wrongdoing just because it's wrong, he is not dividing anyone. We're already divided. He is speaking to who he empowers, because he's going to need, his approval rating is going down, right? So he's going to need these people to keep rallying behind him, because he only has people to lose. Everyone who hates Trump or does not support Trump is not going to convert.
Come back, yeah. No one's coming back to that.
So he only has supporters to lose. So he has to continue to speak to them, align with the police. A lot of people, doesn't matter if you're racist or not, support the police because they're the people who protect us. But in this time, when you come out so openly and blatantly in support of a police force that was wrong, the two people who got fired, they were wrong for what they did. And he didn't acknowledge that. He did the opposite. He supported them. Yeah. That is speaking to a very specific group of people. He will not condemn those people.
Let me ask you too, was it actually a positive, or will it be a net positive that he won in 2016 as a result that he exposed a lot of fissures and allowed people to speak their truth, which then made people go, wait a minute, I can now speak my truth because I didn't know that was your truth. Is it a net positive that he was actually elected and won in 2016?
Net positive, that's an interesting spin on it, because it's so hard to look at it as any type of positive. I will say, if you do look at it positive, yes, it has exposed a lot more people that maybe kept their racism a little bit quiet. Like they speak, like we talk about presidential elections and how it always goes like I guess it goes like this, like a pendulum. And then we have Obama, which was on one extreme. We have to admit he's the first Black president.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
It's a positive extreme, but it's still one extreme. Like they say, the market always corrects itself. So the pendulum has to come back down, and we have Trump as a result of it, So I guess you can look at it as a positive, where it got more conversations going. It got a lot of people talking. It got a lot of people to see that racism has never died. Yeah. In fact, it's still very much so alive today. We're just seeing it with maybe a new coat of paint, maybe we're seeing it a little bit differently.
Yeah, Latoya?
Yeah, I do think it's a net positive. I definitely didn't vote for him and won't vote for him in the next election. But even myself, I've tended to fall on the side of being politically correct and careful in what I say, as to not ruffle feathers, especially being a practicing attorney and, acting, and you're always under the spotlight. And so I've tried to act in a way that was politically correct. And now things are so bad. It's like, I'm not concerned about being politically correct. I'm concerned about speaking my truth and fighting for what I believe in. And so for those reasons, I do think it's a net positive. It's forced us as a nation to take action.
Yeah, as much as I did support Hillary winning the last election over Trump, I don't know if we'd be having a conversation now about defunding the police. And I think because things got to such extremes, we're now having that conversation. And I want to state here that there are some groups that want to abolish the police. Defund the police is related, but it's not the same group. They want to defund the police, which does not mean get rid of the police completely. It means allocate a lot of those resources to education and different areas, mental health, that the police address that should be addressed by different areas. And by that, crime will come down because we remove these instances that exacerbate crime, and removing those and having them taken care of in the proper way will allow crime to come down. Do you guys support the defund the police movement? And what was your initial take when you heard it? Because I know for me, I don't know if I like the wording defund the police versus, bring the money down lower. Defund the police makes it sound like you're going to abolish them. I think that gets a lot of people nervous. What are y'all's takes?
I would say I'm not a fan of abolishing the police. I know the words defund, disband, and abolish are being juggled, and people are getting the definitions or what the process is mixed up, but I'll just make that stance clear. I am not a fan of abolishing the police. I do not want to handle other people, and I know that there's good people in the police force that'll keep us going as a society, but I am 100% for budget cutting the police. I guess that funding sounds like you're taking all the money away, which is almost like abolition. Right?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, but that's not what it is. So let's make that clear. That's not what it is.
Right. So I would love to see, obviously, like what Toya was saying earlier, I don't know where the money goes and I don't know what they do with the money, but I would love to see that money go into the kids, into community centers, into education, new books, new buildings. I know, especially I lived in New York City prior to living in LA, and wow, the school systems are almost night and day depending on what neighborhood you live in, even though they're all under New York City school system. And other cities, of course, too, around the country. If that money can be allocated in somewhere where it really is going to affect change, I love that so much. Mm-hmm. I will say I am in full support of disbanding the police, which in my mind, the definition would be to weed out the bad apples and replace them. It's going to be a slow, systemic change. It's going to take a lot of research and investigation and looking at past history and all the other stuff. But if we're going to put forth this message that there are good police and that it's the bad apples making it bad, then show us, take them out and replace them. New training, put that money back into training. And I don't know if you could train out racism, but I guess you can train out racial bias
and bias training, and a lot of that is actually included in the Justice of Policing Act. So mm-hmm. I don't know if that act will ever make it to law to the president's desk, and he'll probably veto it. But if that gets through somehow, it addresses so much of that that's critically needed. LaToya, what are your thoughts?
This is not a politically correct statement, but in my mind, a racist is a racist is a racist, and a racist should never be a part of a police force. I agree that funding should be adequate and appropriate. I agree that there are other parts of our society that needs funding, education, youth development programs, different communities. But I think that with policing, it needs to start at the beginning. Like, we need stricter requirements to becoming a police officer. We need more thorough background checks, social media checks, like really finding out who these people are. And there's been a lot of talk about how long police academy is. I know I'm an attorney. Shaka, you're an attorney. We did 7 years of higher education and took a 2 or 3 day exam to become an attorney. But I go into court and I'm talking to a police officer, or in a way arguing with a police officer about the merits of a case, and your education and training is a very small fraction of what I've done. And so I just think that it has to start at the grounds level in terms of like how we hire, who we hire, the training that they go through. And then, like it was said earlier, policing within that police force. And as soon as we see what we're dealing with, it's not we brush it under the rug, like we take immediate and appropriate action to get rid of people like that, as well as police officers should not have the power that they have. The ability to pull over a person for a random traffic stop, like failure to use a signal. Really what that is an invitation to legally pull someone over and then to harass them. Like, we need to get rid of laws and violations that give the police power to interact with citizens that are not helpful.
And those violations could even be done by maybe computer, where you made a lane change, you get that in the mail. You don't need to be pulled over for that.
I don't even need it in the mail. It's not worth it.
Yeah, right. Let's get rid of it completely. No, but what I liked about the Justice in Policing Act is that it allocates money towards community innovation in policing. So people will get together and be able to figure out what is the best way to pull someone over if that's needed, or what's an innovative way to make sure people are held accountable without creating this sort of me versus them scenario. We got to talk about now the funeral for George Floyd that was held June 9th. June 9th has been named George Floyd Memorial Day, and so we had the funeral, of course. And Al Sharpton said that it's not just a tragedy, it's a crime. And he really wanted to underline that. It's not just a tragedy, it's a crime, because we got to get now from these charges to conviction. And so I want to talk to you about those next steps. Where do we go from here? We had so many of the family members of people that were slain at the funeral. Botham Jean's sister was there, Eric Garner's mother was there, the family of Trayvon Martin. So you had so many people that were there, and you don't want more of these names. Where do we go from here? We know we got some laws that are making their way through different legislatures. What do you guys think personally people can do? And then what do you think as a society we need to do to move forward?
Personally, I would like to see, I would just like to see the Black community continue to come together and have these conversations. Because as we've seen, I don't know how deep you guys are into social media, especially Twitter, where people are just freely talking. There's even a lot of division amongst opinions within our community. And that's okay, because everyone has a different experience, everyone has a different mindset, and we're all entitled to feel how we feel. But if we can continue having really healthy conversations, not put the blame on ourselves, continue to see like how we can support each other mentally, how we can look out for each other within the community. It's really tough to ask someone to step in if someone else is getting pulled over. But I've seen some brave souls who stopped and said, "Are you okay?" Or, pull out a phone. Those things mean the world, and it has saved a lot of lives. So again, if the Black community continues to strengthen themselves, buy Black and invest Black and all those things I see within us, I'm so proud of us for, even initiating that, because we're realizing that we have the focus now. And if we continue to keep our focus on ourselves, we can just grow. Mm-hmm. There's nothing we can personally do, though, about police brutality, because we don't hold that power. When we get stopped by the police, we are in the hands of the police. They have the power. So as a society, I think the first thing that needs to happen, where I think there's going to be huge change, is a conviction. Yeah. Because we have not seen that where we think it was justly deserved. And I feel really scared that if they don't get this right, and they don't give this murderer and the other accessories to murder the proper convictions, this country is going to burn down. We've already seen little hints of anger and unruliness. So I think that a big step would be a conviction to show the country. Kneeling for us and naming streets after BLM and naming and painting streets and all that other stuff is great. But if you want to put your money where your mouth is and you really want to affect change, you're going to show us that the justice system, as broken as it is, it works twice a day. You know what I mean? So that's where I think we have to go next with this thing. It's going to take a while because, I'm sure you guys are attorneys, you know how long how it goes. Yeah. But I would love to see that in the near future.
LaToya?
I think I'll second what you just said, but I'll also take it a step further. I think that so much of this conversation has been focused on criminal justice reform, both in laws and in policing. But it needs to go beyond that. It needs to go into higher education. It needs to go into corporate jobs. It needs to go into Black and brown people being hired in positions of power. That's the way we really change our lives generationally, is we have access to good education. We have access to the good jobs and to the money and to the ability to create generational wealth for our families. And so obviously, criminal justice system, reform of laws, reform of policing, all of that needs to happen. But when this world is back open and back running, we need jobs.
Yeah.
I want to see CEOs and upper level management that's Black and brown and women. Like, I want to see people of color in positions of power and change.
Yeah, and that's what's upsetting, because Trump was out there just touting these wonderful job numbers the other day, but not noting that Black and Latino unemployment had risen, even though the overall unemployment had lowered. So, that's something that the administration is still not acknowledging, even in the midst of what's going on. So it's very, very troubling. But one thing I want to talk to you guys about was the protest. So we have protest, we got the looters, we got the rioters, and I think a lot of people have tried to characterize that as the bulk of what's happening. The bulk of what's happening has been peaceful protesting. But what is your take about this conversation and the looting taking away from the overall message?
I don't feel like the looting has taken away from the overall message. I think it was Ava who said, if your position is that the looting has taken away, like, you don't understand the movement, you don't understand what's happening. I do not agree. To me, looting is just theft. I don't agree with it. But I do think that everything that has happened, the looting, the rioting, the fire, the police car set on fire, like, it has all played its part in making people sit back and take notice. I think that if the protests were peaceful from day one, it would have been easy to say, oh, look at that, like, how cute. But when it's your city on fire, when you're kind of scared to go outside, like, that makes you say, wait a second, like, okay, let's pay attention and listen and see what needs to happen. So I think that it's all played a part. I don't condone violence, but I support the change that we're seeing.
I agree. It was well said, because it's kind of akin to Colin Kaepernick and his protest. If you're focusing on disrespecting the flag and disrespecting troops, then you don't care a thing about what the real message is. And we know what the message is. It's just easier for people to negate a message or completely deflect from a message by refocusing on something else. So I don't agree with the looting either. A lot of businesses have been destroyed, and especially in the Black and brown community, it's so hard to get a small business loan and open up your business and be successful past 1 year anyway. It's really hard for a lot of these people to come back. But again, if it was peaceful, we were marching like we were in Selma, we were on the March on Washington, how peaceful that is. It'll just be a little bit of a footnote in history. This, unfortunately, burning all the police precincts in Minnesota and burning up a Target is what got people to start talking about this. I know they say all bad press is good press or whatever. And in this situation, it is, because if people are not paying attention, then they really don't care. And I hope, obviously I'm not in everyone's household, but I hope that people who are out of sight, out of mind, and people like, well, it doesn't really affect me, because your community is burning, like you said, it's going to affect you. Maybe you're going to listen to what's going on behind that. I think that the peace overshadowed all the bad stuff in my mind, because look how all those people, for the most part, organize themselves. Look at all the type of turnout: Black, white, brown, tall, short, disabled, abled, old, young, everyone turned out. I think that's astonishing. So if you want to focus on the bad, I'm sorry for you, but I'm so proud of like everyone else.
Yeah, Ava even mentioned, and if you really want to focus on the looters, let's focus on the system that makes someone say that even in the midst of this, I need to get this pair of shoes that has been presented to me in this capitalist way, that now is the moment I need to make this time for myself. Yes. So let's fully look at what's taking place here if we want to look at looting, if we want to look at rioting. And I think I can't remember the viral video I just saw recently, but another lady questioned, she says, look at these riots, but are we really burning down our communities? Who owns that Target? Who owns that property where you got the loan from? It's still not us, So at the end of the day, we're not really burning down our communities. And so we got to look at the larger systems when we're talking about looting and rioting. What is taking place, And so what do you guys feel about how do we go about correcting some of these larger systems that create that inequality?
Well, I think looting is a direct reflection of depravity, right? People are poor. And not only are people poor, we're at 40 million unemployment. People literally don't have jobs. And so you can't condone the looting, because looting is theft. It's still wrong, but it's a direct reflection of desperation. you show people who are frustrated, who are home, some of which only received $1,200 in the last 3-4 months, and they're looking at that pair of shoes and that Chanel bag, and they're looking at that vacuum that they've always wanted, or they're looking at that bed set that they couldn't afford, and they're saying, well, if no one cares about me, why do I care?
And they're hearing the stories of the trillions of dollars that company got to bail themselves out, versus
Right.
the 1,200 that individuals got.
And then you hear about insurance is going to take care of it, and why do I care? Like you said, some people don't even see it as their community because who really owns it. So I think in order to mend this, it's kind of like a trickle down effect. Like if this didn't happen, then we wouldn't be here in the first place. I think we have to rewind and start from the beginning. What is the issue? The reason why are we even outside? You got to start from where the issue is, and also get America running when it's ready, because I think we can't rush this because it looks like the coronavirus numbers are getting worse.
I think in 19 states they're rising. Yes,
especially in California. So the quick fix right now is put money in people's pockets, period. I mean, I don't see how else we could fix it right now,
Yeah. Latoya?
I do feel as though this movement is just about inequality in general, racial inequality, economic inequality. I think the protests started in LA on a Thursday. That next Friday in like the La Brea, Fairfax area, I happened to be out. And as much as it was about Black Lives Matter, to me, it was equally about, from the people that I saw on the street, about economic inequality, oppression, not having. I think that especially in a society that is so focused on social media and the appearance, and we see these people that have incredible wealth, and it's a constant show of houses and cars and clothes and jewelry. And then you have the other side of that, of people who want to be that, but are so far removed from it. Then yes, this is their opportunity to go and take and to be a part of, as well as to punish those who have. So there's just a lot that we have to get really honest about and have conversations about and do the work. And the work has got to continue. I'm looking at a calendar because I'm like, it can't end at the end of June or the end of July. Like, we have got to keep pushing this and working for equality, at least access, right? Like there will always be a difference in terms of who, when they got the education, or who applied for this job and who worked the hardest, but we should have equal access to everything.
Yeah, agreed. And I want to say, I do not condone looting, I don't condone rioting, but I do condone looking at the symptoms or the issues that are creating that situation before we look at the situation when a guy's been murdered. We got to check that gut feeling. We go, what's really offending us here? So I want to thank you guys for joining me. This has been an incredible conversation. What is one thing going forward that you could say to a non-Black person about how to be a positive ally for Black people in this time?
I would say that life is uncomfortable. And for some, it's more uncomfortable than for others. And so I know these conversations are really uncomfortable. I know a lot of these conversations never pertain to you, and it might not even till today, but your understanding and your willingness to look at a different point of view and understand really what the illness is, and then look at the symptoms, is enough to spark change, because you will now be able to have these hard conversations with other people who are non-Black, who also are just like you, who have a different mindset or don't understand. And that will continue. It will snowball into where people are having a positive, progressive conversation, because as much as Black people love to do things ourselves, we know that we can't. We are still a minority. There's a lot of people who affect change outside of us who need to push us forward as well. And when Black people push forward, you see a lot of minorities also are brought together. When different acts are are enacted, it becomes a minority bill. It's not just for Black people. So continue to have the conversations. Find a Black person that you trust, someone that you can be honest with, that can help you understand what's going on and help you maybe explain things to a parent or a friend or someone else, and keep having these conversations, and it won't be so uncomfortable later.
I think that was very well said. When you asked the question, Shaka, my first thought was, it's not about you. In terms of, I think that people get so self-consumed with how they feel and what they want and what benefits them. But in this situation, especially for allies, I'm just going to say white allies, it's not about you. It's about us. It's about the Black person, the brown person, the yellow person. It's about everyone who's suffering from oppression in some way. And it is about listening. It's about trying to learn. It's about sacrificing of yourself and your comfort for the greater good. And so I would say, have that conversation, maybe go to that protest, sign that petition, and just really figure out what can you do to make a positive difference and a positive change.
I love that. Yeah, I think a lot of times we are so rooted, especially now, in this cause, that it can seem like we're angry or non-invitation to dialogue. But at least I want people to know that while we're rooted and we are angry, we're not angry at you. So we are inviting dialogue. We want all of our people, our white friends, to come and say, hey, look, what can I do? That's the best thing you can say. What can I do? And we'll have some thoughts for you. Thank you guys for joining us. Adeze, where can they find you online?
You can follow me on Instagram at oneadeze. That's 1ADAEZE.
And Latoya, where can they find you online?
I'm on Instagram at Latoya.Blakely and Twitter at Blakely Latoya.
You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Shaka Strong. See you guys next week.
Bye.
On behalf of our BHL staff, we would like to thank you for tuning in to Black Hollywood Live, the world's first digital broadcast network devoted entirely to urban entertainment and pop culture. Check out our Black Hollywood Live YouTube page for even more great programming and amazing content. And be sure to subscribe and like our channel when you do. I'm your BHL host, Nakia Monet, and you can find me on all social media at Kiki Boom Boom or at Black Hollywood Live. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.